Winter has just begun to blanket the southern Missouri woods. The air is dead silent, but don't let that fool you. Beneath the snow, wild boar tracks are still fresh. These animals don't hibernate. With thick hides and coarse fur, they keep moving through the forest in search of food. Today's journey isn't just a hunt. It's a test of strength between seasoned hunters and wild beasts that are growing smarter and bolder. The forest edge, lightly blanketed in snow, was a place where wild boars often appeared, and also ideal terrain for tracking their prints. We had been lying in ambush for less than 15 minutes when the first dark shapes emerged. Just seconds later, gunshots rang out, sharp and deafening, followed by the urgent click of reloading. Each shot was deadly. One by one, the boars collapsed right at the top of the slope, motionless on the snowy, brush-covered ground. As soon as we received the signal from the forward reconnaissance team, we moved out immediately. Rhett took position at the front of the trail, while I hid along the edge, an ideal spot to intercept any boar charging across. We've coordinated like this dozens of times, and this time was no different. A dark blur suddenly streaked past in front of me. I reacted instantly, pulling the trigger on instinct. One clean, precise shot ended it swiftly. Just as I lower my rifle, another one burst out. No time to think, I raised the gun and fired a second shot. Bang! The second target collapsed, just a few steps away from the first. 2 shots, 2 kills, all within less than 15 seconds. We had brought a small amount of corn with us. No need for machines or bait spreaders, just hand scattered on the ground and waited. It was a simple approach, but extremely effective. In the harsh winter, natural food sources are nearly depleted, and hungry wild boars have an exceptionally sharp sense of smell. Our group stayed hidden at a safe distance, positioned upwind, so our scent wouldn't be carried to them. Not a single sound was made. More and more boars began to appear. I slowly raised my rifle, locking eyes on a large one with its head down, voraciously chewing on the scattered corn. This was it, the moment I've been waiting for. Bang! The shot was clean and effortless. The boar dropped instantly, but the loud crack of the rifle sent the rest fleeing into the snow-covered forest. We kept spreading out to improve our chances of spotting games. The snow here was fairly thick, every step sank deep and made a crunching sound. Fortunately, I had equipped myself with spiked, anti-slip hunting boots, so moving through it wasn't too difficult. While hiding behind a large clump of trees, I suddenly caught sight of a wild boar on the move. It froze in place as soon as it spotted me, but it was already too late. The rifle was chambered and ready to fire. After 2 quick shots, the boar thrashed in the snow, then gradually went still. A short distance away, Rhett came face to face with another prey. As if it had sensed the danger, it suddenly turned and tried to flee in the opposite direction. Without a moment's hesitation, Rhett turned the barrel, tracked the target's movement, and squeezed the trigger. The result was exactly as expected, another trophy claimed. The temperature kept dropping lower and lower. We took shelter inside a shooting shack. It not only blocked the cold wind, but also helped mask our human scent, making it harder for the wild boars to detect us. Plus, it was an ideal place to sit and wait for hours, perfect for a long ambush. More than half an hour passed in complete silence, and finally, the wild boars appeared. They used their sharp, tough snouts to dig through the snow, searching for leftover roots and wild mushrooms. I placed my eye against the scope, picked out the biggest one with a perfect shooting angle. That's the one, I told myself, then pulled the trigger decisively. The boar dropped onto the snow. Perfect. Another hunting day came to a close. The cold wind still whistled through the treetops. The snow covered our tracks, but the game was secured. Enough to know the ambush hadn't been in vain. Wild boars, a familiar name, yet a true nightmare for our community. They don't just invade our fields, they brazenly rummage through residential areas, destroying crops and causing chaos day and night. To root out this cunning beast, our hunting team had no choice but to venture deep into the treacherous swamplands, where they hide, breed, and form their packs. This time, our destination was a swampy area right next to Wayne's home. We chose an airboat for the journey. The roar of the engine thundered through the air as the boat blasted forward at breakneck speed. Seated in the deck, we were all in position, eyes sharply focused. Over there! Without hesitation, I raised my rifle and pulled the trigger with precision. Within just 5 seconds, the animal dropped, unable to fight back. A perfect start to today's hunt. I had spotted another target. The sound of the engine must have triggered its instincts, sending it charging wildly ahead. But no matter how fast it ran, even at 40 kilometers h, it couldn't outrun the cold, powerful muzzle of our rifles. Thanks to the swamp's rich food supply, it has become a paradise for wild boars. Just 10 minutes later, a boar wandered right into Lionel's line of sight. He closed in immediately, gripping his rifle tight despite the engine's jolts, and opened fire in quick succession. Amazing! Despite the difficult terrain, we completed our objective. Now, in the middle of the vast swamp, the wild boar lay motionless, just a dark shadow against the wetland backdrop. After wrapping up yesterday's tense hunt, by the next afternoon, we ventured into an area with taller, denser trees. Using binoculars, our team spotted a large herd of wild boars busily foraging on the ground. We carefully moved in, silently closing the gap and choosing optimal shooting positions. The air felt heavy with anticipation. Bang! Bullseye! A thunderous gunshot echoed across the swamp, instantly dropping one of the boars in its tracks. Deeper inside the quiet marshlands, Wayne was quietly tailing a separate target. He crept forward with measured steps, reducing the distance to increase his shot accuracy. When a moment was right, he didn't hesitate. He fired. Perfect. The bullet streaked forward, hitting the boar square in the body. It let out a single shriek before collapsing on the spot.
Good shot, brother. Good job.
A few hundred meters farther in, I suddenly spotted a familiar dark figure peeking from behind the dense trees. I quickly moved closer, got into position, and waited for the boar to come fully into sight. The shot rang out, startling the boar into a run. But with our seasoned experience, we knew it wouldn't get far. Sure enough, it collapsed just about 10 meters away. Most hunters avoid this swamp due to its harsh and hard-to-reach terrain. Ironically, this has allowed wild boars to thrive even more. In response, we've continued our hunts to control their population and protect the surrounding farmland. You're ready, baby. Wild boars are well adapted to the cold thanks to their thick fur and layer of fat beneath the skin, allowing them to survive even in temperatures as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius in snowy regions like Europe, Russia, North America. But despite the bitter cold, they relentlessly search for food and continue to wreak havoc on our villages. To contain the situation, the local hunting team, including myself, immediately set out on a hunt. After standing still for about 15 minutes, the distant barking of hunting dogs suddenly stirred something deep inside me. Without hesitation, I ran toward the chaotic sound. It had to be wild boars, I told myself, raising my rifle. There was a dark shadow burst out from the trees. I pulled the trigger. Surrounded by dogs and hit by a powerful shot, the boar collapsed, lifeless and smoking. Just a few hundred meters away, John's group had just reached their position when they spotted another wild boar. He quickly chose a good vantage point, adjusted his scope toward the target. A single shot rang out in the cold air. In a flash, the boar dropped dead. Fast, clean, and precise. To increase my chances, I didn't stay in one place. I kept moving through the woods in search of new targets. The gunfire earlier must have startled a herd. They were fleeing. No time to think. I adjusted my scope and fired. Luckily, each bullet hit its mark, and the takedown became quick and efficient. As the temperature kept dropping, we waited for another 30 minutes, but saw no more boars. So, the team decided to gather the results of the hunt and head back. The next day, we set out again to search for boars in another forest. Without hunting dogs, we had to be extra alert and look closely for signs like tracks or that distinct musky smell. Thanks to that, I spotted my next one. Its silhouette flickered between the tree trunks. Not giving it a chance to escape, I raised my gun and pulled the trigger with precision. Perfect shot. Another clean kill. Another trophy to mark the day. Wasting no time, I rushed out of the forest to intercept a boar John had just reported seeing. Heart pounding, I steadied my breath and took it. As the boars charged out, I fired. Gunshots echoed, breaking the forest silence. The bullet found its target, exactly what we had hoped for. Snow began falling even heavier, forcing us to head back for safety. But just as we were on the move, a friend suddenly called to alert us.
7-8 tane sap.
A herd of wild boars was charging down, only 50 meters away. I dashed forward, my gun already loaded. All that was left was to pull the trigger. The boar was hit, but tried to flee. It didn't get far before it collapsed. The cold, treacherous forest trails couldn't stop us. This isn't just a hunter's journey. It's a duty to protect our homeland.
In recent days, the situation of wild boars has been the destruction in this mountainous area has gotten out of control. The farmers here are fed up. They need an immediate solution, and that's why we're here. Today, our plan is twofold. Set a trap for wild boars first, then go hunting in the nearby mountains. We drag large iron cage traps to an area where wild boars often pass by. The dense footprints on the ground show that they have been here many times before. The trap is firmly reinforced, has a surveillance camera system, placed close to the edge of the forest, baited with corn and food with the scent of bran. After completing, the group quickly moves to the mountain, ready for the hunt. We split into two groups, lurking on the hilltops. The group moved carefully, listening, observing every movement around. Here it is, a wild boar appeared right in front. The first round of fire was deployed. We were quite surprised that it could escape without any damage. Raise the gun, ambush ahead. But this was just the beginning. We continued to move forward, searching for the boar's tracks. Something was ahead. Approach carefully, it was a wild boar. This is a very crowded herd of pigs. The pigs are big and fat, but their speed of movement cannot be underestimated. Therefore, it is very difficult to shoot accurately and take them down. It seemed like an opportunity was coming, but the herd of pigs detected the danger. They immediately turned around and ran away. Without thinking much, we decisively pulled the trigger. We only managed to take down a medium-sized target. bit of regret, the group was determined to track down and take down the entire herd of pigs. Here it is. The eyes of the group still followed every movement of the wild pigs. As soon as they moved to the most ideal position, gunshots immediately rang out. The hunt continued. Each time we encountered them, we had to calculate the appropriate tactics to optimize efficiency while still ensuring safety. Through each battle, the number of wild boars killed increased. We knew that there were still many other herds of wild boars lurking somewhere on this mountain. We arrived at the neighboring mountain. This was where the wild boars often came in the afternoon to find food. And as expected, another herd of pigs appeared. This time, the battle was more fierce. We had to constantly move and change positions to avoid being counterattacked by the pigs. The huge, bulky boars were still galloping across the hillsides. Only when they reached an open area could we open fire. Despite having killed a large number, the battle was not over yet. The wild boar continues to thrive, and there will certainly be more hunting trips like this in the future. The last series of shots could only take down a few wild pigs. Quite a pity, so we need to try harder. Today, we did a good job, but tomorrow, there are still many challenges waiting ahead. As the sky began to darken, the group returned to the trap area. When they arrived, the sight before their eyes surprised everyone. The trap had worked. At least 10 wild boars were trapped inside, struggling wildly but unable to escape. To ensure safety, we decided to finish them off before opening the trap. After a long day of fighting, we had taken down dozens of wild boars, a significant number in our efforts to control their numbers.
According to reports, wild boars often leave the deep forest during the winter in search of food, leading to significant crop destruction. In fact, a study by the Food and Agriculture Organization found that boar activity increases by up to 30% during this season. That's why, despite the bitter cold, we continue our hunts regularly to help control their rising numbers. Our team began the ascent as planned. On sunny days like this, boars are more likely to come out and bask for warmth or forage for food. And for us, that's the golden opportunity. Each member swept the terrain from their assigned positions. From afar, we heard the unmistakable barking of our hounds. Boars were near. I raised my rifle, finger ready on the trigger. Bullseye. I had it covered. Taking down the boar in this remote mountain wilderness is a thrill that words can hardly describe. A boar burst out of the undergrowth. I fired instantly. The mountains are vast, the boars numerous, but we only had our determination and our rifles as weapons. We pressed on toward the summit. Suddenly, what was that? A whole herd of wild boars came charging down from the opposite ridge. I locked my sights on them and quickly pulled the trigger. But these animals are incredibly fast. Despite my efforts, I only managed to bring down one. A 2-day snowstorm had blanketed this place in deep white, forcing us to delay the hunt. But with today's weather clearing up, we returned to the mountain range. "Look there!" Henry shouted, spotting several boars below. We couldn't shoot just yet, had to find a better vantage point for a clean shot. Once I was in position, I steadied my breath and squeezed the trigger. The bullet flew like lightning, striking the boar dead on. Think it escaped? No chance. Take a look. This beast must weigh at least 150 kilograms. No doubt they had just passed through here. Sure enough, our dogs found them and started barking sharply. We tracked them slowly, waiting for Liam to get into position in case we missed our shot. Then the moment came. We signaled and opened fire. The startled boars bolted, but too late. They'd run straight into the guns of seasoned hunters.
What was that?
One more shot for a fleeing boar, just as sure for the damage they caused. Meanwhile, on another slope, a large herd of boars charged out, catching Mervyn completely by surprise. But this was the jackpot we'd been waiting for. Mervyn waited until they moved into a more favorable position. He fired but missed. He didn't give up and chased after them, Thankfully, our hounds had cornered one. It was now or never. This time, the boars had no escape. We were just packing up to leave when we suddenly stumbled upon yet another herd of wild boars.